here's Casey Ingram.
Well, welcome to this beautiful Wednesday that is a little rainy, and I hear sports and after-school activities are canceled in Martin County already. But, we got a great show on tap, folks, and I'm really excited about this show. Locally here, we're talking a lot about the Brightline train station and really how, our unelected bureaucrats have negotiated deals that are absolutely horrendous on behalf of Martin County taxpayers. And I have with me today Jeff Buongiorno. He is running for the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Election Office. And, it's amazing. They're two completely separate issues. But you look at the unelected bureaucrats behind the scene, what's going on, and elected officials. And are they really doing things that's in the best interest of the residents and the general public? So before we get into that, Jeff, I'm glad you're here in the studio. We got a lot to talk about. We're going to take all hour. I have to thank my wonderful sponsors. First one, attention boaters. Are you looking for safe harborage during hurricane season or top-notch boatyard to keep your vessel in tip-top shape? Look no further than Indiantown Marina. Indiantown Marina is not just your average boat storage facility nestled in South Florida along the Okeechobee Waterway. They're a well-protected hurricane hole that savvy cruisers love to call home. They offer a full array of boatyard services, or do it yourself. Reserve your safe hurricane harborage today, and folks, what do you know? You never know when these little babies are going to pop up. But just have your reservation, and then you know you have safe harborage no matter what. Let Indiantown Marina be the ultimate caretaker for your vessel. 772-597-2457, 597-2457, or visit IndiantownMarina.com. And just down the street from Indiantown Marina is Indiantown Marine Center. They strive to provide our customers with an efficient and user-friendly location for servicing and storing vessels while still maintaining cleanliness, environmental quality, and safety. They provide dockage, travel lifts, workspace, long-term storage, and other repair and maintenance services, as well as offering a convenient hurricane haul-out program. Indiantown Marine Center is a contractor yard and can provide a list of approved contractors that our customers can engage in with no markup or gate fees. Customers are also welcome to bring their own contractor, provided pre-approval is given before starting work. Look them up online, IndiantownMarineCenterFL.com, or give them a call at 772-597-0800, 597-0800. And a couple things I need to mention. First of all, there is going to be a home ownership education literacy program for veterans Sunday, October 6th from 8:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. Check-in begins at 8 a.m. If you have any questions, you'll want to contact Diane Klein, kdiane@nova.edu. This is going to be held at the Blake Library on Monterey Road in Stewart, and they're talking about planning a future home purchase. Already own a home but looking to downsize, concerned about housing instability, looking for guidance for VA loan qualifications. All this and more. Certification from attending the free home buyer workshop is valued at $200 and qualifies you for down payment assistance towards buying a home. And finally, one more announcement, Jeff, before we get to this very good show about election integrity. Carlos Gavidia, you probably remember he and his wife were in here back in 2020. He started all those fabulous Trump boat parades. Carlos is back in town, and he has a couple things that are coming up. First is the America First Music Festival. It's going to be Saturday, October 12th, from noon to 5 p.m. at the Harborside Amphitheater in Jupiter. This is going to be fantastic. They have a whole lineup of fabulous musicians, and it's going to be faith and family-centered. So something for the entire family to come out. And again, that is going to be Saturday, October 12th, and I will share more of this online on my Facebook page, noon to 5. And then the following day, they're going to have another boat parade. They are going to leave from Jupiter Lighthouse Sunday, October 13th at 11 a.m. And folks, it's Carlos Gavidia. He's going to have an air show at 11:30 a.m. featuring paratroopers, a biplane wing walker, a C-48 warbird flyover, flags soaring, and when we say flag soaring, they're huge. Absolutely huge. Carlos is one of those guys, go big or go home. So it's going to be a real spectacle. So keep those dates open, and I'll share more information again on my Facebook page, October 12th and 13th. Now, on to the guest, and we're going to spend the rest of the hour talking about election integrity, folks. This is something that has really been, right in the front and foremost issue with our elections, and I think something that people really need confidence in, that when they cast a vote, it's going to be counted, and that registered voters are the only ones casting votes. So we're going to talk a lot about this. Jeff Buongiorno, Buongiorno is a political outsider and American businessman who left the tyranny of New Jersey over a decade ago for the freedoms of Florida. With a career dedicated to law enforcement and the Constitution, he started as a deputy sheriff before building successful companies in various sectors, including IT, transportation, manufacturing, and tech. Jeff's private IT vocational schools achieved an 80% job placement rate, supporting veterans and the unemployed. His tech company enhanced U.S. manufacturing competitiveness through automation and modernization. Jeff has over 100 IT certifications and served on the Microsoft Research Panel for 4 years. He has contributed to numerous manufacturing enterprise products and worked with all 12 Federal Reserve banks on consumer sentiment tools. Jeff's extensive experience makes him uniquely qualified to serve as Supervisor of Elections in Palm Beach County. His mission is to restore public faith in our election system, aligning his skills and passion with the goal of protecting our civil liberties and constitutional rights through provable, transparent elections. Jeff, welcome back to the show. You were running for Congress last time you were in here, but this is really an important issue and one that you really started to focus on after the last election when you saw how it turned out.
Well, yeah, thanks for having me on. Great to be back in the studio with you. And, without fair and free elections, we have tyranny. And this is a basic right, one of the most important rights, next to, well, right up there with the First Amendment and free speech. And we're seeing a trampling of our voting rights and our First Amendment rights. And a lot of folks across the country and even in Florida think that, we're the gold standard of elections. And I can tell you that's far from the truth.
Folks, we're going to spend the rest of the hour with Jeff. If you have a question, he said, hey, I'd love to hear from you all. So 772-220-9788, 220-WSTU. I'm also watching my Facebook live stream for questions and comments, and we'll relay them. But, Jeff, this is really a tense campaign. The Sun Sentinel wouldn't even print your candidate questionnaire that you sent in. So why are you running? I mean, what's put you into this seat that you said I really want to run? Because it's interesting, folks. The person that is the supervisor of elections in Palm Beach County was appointed by Governor DeSantis, and then changed her voter party affiliation to Democrat.
Yeah.
So you're now the Republican running for supervisor of elections in Palm Beach County, who was, again, it's just the whole thing is.
I am, and DeSantis has made some questionable appointments. You could look at the Broward sheriff, who was a convicted murderer, and he didn't know that, and he appointed him as sheriff. Another interesting appointment that he made was Dave Kerner, putting him in charge of the Florida Motor Vehicle and Highway Safety Division, and they play a big role in the issuance of driver's licenses. And Kerner was a Palm Beach County commissioner, a Democrat, and DeSantis moved him up to Tallahassee, made him the chief of the Motor Vehicle Service, and this is where we're seeing a lot of the gaslighting and shenanigans with non-citizens getting on the voter rolls. And an interesting point to discuss, Kerner is an anti-Trumper. In 2016, he posted on Twitter that we must do everything in our power to stop Donald Trump from taking office. Now, he's the guy who conveniently is head of the motor vehicle services, and everyone praised DeSantis for the move because he appointed a Republican to the Palm Beach County commissioners. So that gave us the majority. But really, what he did was he took a bad actor and he put him at the top level, and he has he's a defendant on the lawsuit that we'll talk about, my federal lawsuit.
Yes.
So this is a problem. We have serious issues with what I call the weapons of mass migration, who have been dropped strategically in places, and it turns to I'm all for legal immigration, but what we're seeing now is tribalism, and that leads to ballot harvesting. Right? They're all on the same team. They're all in one group, and when you're absent the sanctity of the ballot box, you don't know what's going on with the to vote by mail ballot. It could be a favor, it could be $50, it could be we're going to reload your government cheese, your gift card. So we have real issues, and they need to be addressed. It's been 4 years and not much has changed. It's even gotten worse because we have 30 million border invaders that are now being registered to vote.
It's interesting because I know here in Martin County, and this could be statewide, I haven't really looked, but in Martin County, the vote by mail ballot initiative is growing every year. More and more people are using that. Jeff, let's talk about that a little bit because we have a wonderful supervisor of elections here in Martin County, Vicki Davis, and I know that they do a really good job trying to compare those signatures, but you have to wonder. You talked about blank ballots and how confident how confident can we be that those signatures around the state, around the country, are truly identified as a registered voter or not? It's just the mail-in ballot system is a tough one to accept sometimes.
My opponent, Wendy Satori-Link, blocked me from her governmental X account, which she's not allowed to do. And
no, she's elected official.
I tweeted that basically the Florida Constitution, Article 6, Section 2 says election day is the Tuesday after the first Monday of November. It's not a month. It's not 3 weeks. It's 1 day. And another provision in the Constitution is that voting shall be secret and direct, or secure and direct, secret and direct. So it's not, when a vote by mail ballot goes out, it's handled by the post office. It goes to a mailbox. From the mailbox, it's delivered to the voter. Now, as you mentioned, I ran for Congress, and I went to a lot of gun shows, and I've seen some of the voters who said, "Yeah, I'm going to vote for you." So I asked, "Hey, Bob, Joe, did you vote for me?" "Well, I don't know. My wife filled the ballot out. I think I did." So, like I said earlier, you can't replace the sanctity of the ballot box with the mailbox. Now, here's another thing that your audience should understand, and this pertains to voter ID. And we think Florida is a photo ID requirement to vote. It's not. You can register to vote by using a 4-digit code, the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So if you look at any of these forms to register, you'll see driver's license number or the last 4 digits of your Social Security number. So you submit this form with a 4-digit code, and the county supervisors, they're leaving it to the state to determine whether they're U.S. citizens. The state and Cord Bird on September 9th wrote a letter to DHS saying, "Hey, we have voters. We don't know if they're citizens. Can you help?" Giving them 14 days to respond. So let's just take this scenario where you've registered to vote, and quite possibly with a third-party, non-governmental organization such as Mi Familia Vota, which is a totally partisan organization. So you'll see them at the DMV and at the Publix. They're registering voters, and they're only using a 4-digit code to verify identity. Next step is you go online and you request your vote by mail ballot, and you don't produce an ID. You just give that same 4-digit code and your date of birth. Next thing, the ballot's mailed to you. You mail it back. So you've registered to vote, you've received the ballot, and you've casted your vote, not once showing your face. So this is the majority of the votes. If you look at the vote by mail numbers, they far outweigh early vote and day of. So this is a huge threat vector, and based on the August primary that we just had, there's huge problems. And this is the reason I stated these facts. The reason the Sun Sentinel refused to print my questionnaire, and I also debated Wendy Link. It was, if you thought the Trump debate was bad with 3-on-1, this was a 6-on-1. But I basically pointed out all of these facts, and they refused to air the debate as well for the first time in history. So you're over the target when that stuff happens.
Yes, and you're getting covered nationally, by the way. And let's talk a little bit more. That's very concerning to me, what you just said, folks. And I hope you go back and listen to this show again. It will be posted on YouTube. But those mail-in ballots, when we go to the polls, we do show our ID.
Yep.
So I'm thinking everybody else has to too, but you just pointed out a real flaw in the whole
Yeah.
system. The fact they don't even have to provide a full social security number.
Right.
The last four digits.
Correct. And there was 6.2% of all Americans have two social security numbers. This was a study that was done in 2010. And so it's worse now.
Tell us about your federal lawsuit you have going on, and that's with Judge Eileen Cannon. She is the same judge that actually is handling the puppy cases here in Martin County, Florida. One of them is still outstanding, but she more notably is handling President Donald Trump's cases here in the federal court in Fort Pierce.
Yeah, well, she's a fair judge, and I don't expect any favors from her. Just fairness. We haven't seen that across the country. So
She's been very fair from what I've seen.
My federal complaint is that there's negligence. There's quite potentially a civil conspiracy, that our civil rights are being violated. At worst, at best, they're not being protected by our local officials. I mentioned a letter that Cord Bird sent regarding non-citizens on the voter rolls, and this was just a few days after I had that debate where I was asked a question by the Sun Sentinel reporters. Well, should Cord Bird, should Ron DeSantis fire Cord Bird? And my answer was Cord Bird should resign in disgrace, because he ultimately is the chief election official, and he is not allowing the verification of citizenship of registered voters. And I pointed out a federal statute. It's Title 8 U.S. Code 1644, and it gives the state, any elected official, even a dog catcher, to request information from DHS. It's an old statute, so it says INS, Immigration and Naturalization Services, that we have the right to request the status of any individual as to their immigration status. And 3 days later, he fired off this letter. Basically, he copied and pasted the cause of my claims, and he cited those same exact statutes and demanded from DHS information. And that was on the 9th, and that's so 14 days. They should have responded by now. So in my federal case, I have a civil rights violation, a conspiracy to deprive U.S. citizens of their voting rights, and a First Amendment infringement. And you're seeing it with the media and the Sun Sentinel. You're seeing it where they're not publishing my questionnaire, they're not releasing the debate. And now their editorial, that's fine, but Wendy Satori-Link, she can't block me on her governmental social media account. And now here's the kicker. They're banning me from canvassing board meetings, which are public, on August 9th for no reason. There was an underlying reason, but it wasn't due to my behavior. I was asked to leave a public canvassing board meeting, and I went to return 5 days later to the next scheduled meeting, and I was denied entry. Just yesterday, I went to the Palm Beach County Supervisor.
Under what premise are they giving you
Well,
this?
they said I was unruly, folks. So they conflict stories. I have the one of the SOE's employees saying that I was unruly and I'm not allowed back in, and Wendy Link, which was a blatant lie, she said that I took pictures of signature verifications. There's screens. They have this whole new facility. I call it the Fortress of Fraud, complete with bulletproof windows and enough bay doors to handle the vote-by-mail ballots to rival an Amazon distribution center. And the people of Palm Beach County were dead set against this. We wanted to decentralize the tabulation in the vote count, and they went ahead and built this this Fortress of Fraud. But their basis was that I was unruly. And the second one was that I took pictures of signatures and I posted them on X, and they tried to, paint this whole story of, of why they're doing this. So today is a canvassing board meeting, and I'm not allowed in at 2 o'clock. Now, we talked about unelected bureaucrats making rules, and this is something that a trend across the nation where unelected bureaucrats are changing election laws and rules. They're doing it through rules. And today, they're going to try to make a rule change where the canvassing board can delegate authority for adjudication of ballots to employees who aren't members of the canvassing board, not they're unelected. So this is a big problem, and this circles back. This circles back to the intent of why I was ejected from that first meeting.
Jeff, what kind of pushback are you getting? I mean, I'm sure it's brought up. Why are we doing mail-in ballots? What is the solution? Because there, at some point you have to have some mail-in ballots. But what you're saying really resonates with me because I was noticing the great increase in mail-in ballots being used as opposed to early voting or any live voting. Why? You just gave me a really good reason why. You don't have to show your identification.
Yeah.
So what kind of pushback are you getting? I don't even understand why this type of voting registration and mail-in ballots is allowed.
So let's just for 1 minute let's talk about these rule changes. This is very important because a rule change in Palm Beach County affects Martin County, it affects the whole state, it affects Broward County. And you brought up blank ballots earlier.
Yes.
And so there never should be a blank ballot in the system. And in Broward County, in the 2022 general, there are 88,000 blank ballots counted.
Tell people what you mean by blank
That
ballot.
means that what they're trying to say is a vote was cast with no ovals filled out, probably by
Literally
mail.
a blank ballot.
Literally a
Ballot.
blank ballot. So I'm working. When I say we, there's a team of us. There was 13 candidates for supervisors of elections, and we all got together. One of them is Chris Gleason. I don't know if you heard of Chris Gleason, and have you heard of Smurfing and Act Blue? He's the one that exposed Smurfing with a guy named Peter Berninger out of Wisconsin. So Chris is basically we work closely together, and we noticed that these blank ballots are being reported now. What is a blank ballot? It should never even be allowed to go through the scanner at all.
Right.
So what they've done, and the reason they would not let me in that original, why they threw me out of that original meeting, the August 9th, the first canvassing board meeting, was because I knew they were going to try to propose a rule to change basically to cancel blank ballots. They're saying now that a blank ballot with any stray marking, is considered an undervote, and that will go to voter intent. And voter intent will be determined by the canvassing board, which now they're delegating to anybody. And I have the rule here. It's word salad. Basically, the rule is word salad. They use it's truly a blank. I could read it direct.
Go ahead.
Judge Bristow mentioned that true undervoted ballots with no markings. So it's an under ballot, but it has no markings. Stray or otherwise, throughout the ballot will be presented to the canvassing board to confirm that it is a truly blank ballot before SOE staff processes it. So why is the staff processing it? Ballots with any markings will be presented to the canvassing board for review. Supervisor Link seconded the motion, and the motion was passed. So this could be a technology issue where the machines aren't set right. And just one thing I want to mention, elections have become there's a ton of technology in our lives, more so even in elections. And we have a lawyer running an IT staff, and that's one reason why I'm running to.
You've got a very strong IT background.
So this blank ballot, it's a scheme, and it's not prevalent in Palm Beach County. And Palm Beach County is doing the bidding for the entire state because the people of Palm Beach County, we had 59 blank ballots. Whatever, we don't care, so no one stands up to it. So today at 2:00, they're going to try to put the final nail in the coffin. The first move was to say that a blank ballot will be adjudicated as with voter intent. So now they basically, the Empress, Judge Bristow, they can decide, or their staff, what the intent of was that blank ballot. And I just gave Broward County as an example. There was over 800,000 in the last two elections combined, blank ballots. So this blank ballot scheme is like Act Blue and Smurfing. No one heard about it. It's not getting publicized, but it has to get out there, and we have to stand up against these unelected bureaucrats who are subverting legislation by making rules.
It seems like insanity that you would even consider anything with a blank ballot. It's blank. It's even if there's a stray mark on it somewhere. A blank ballot is a blank ballot, so it's frightening. And then can these blank ballots be mail-in ballots as well?
They're mostly mail-ins. That's what they are. And,
Oy
we
vey.
think, in my opinion, they're placeholders to see what, and that's why you have all this time to count. And
How it changes after
and-
an election when they're
Yeah.
recounting or counting the late ballots that come in.
Yeah, and
or
you had a
mail-in ballots.
you had a question on the mail-in ballots, right? Okay, well, it escaped me at the moment.
Well, I was just
went
talking
off on a
about what's the
tangent.
pushback of changing the rules on that.
So the pushback, Florida's had mail-in ballots, and it seems like Florida's a testing ground for things. Like I mentioned the last time I was here that I had a text exchange with Rep. Mike Caruso
Yes.
about a Haitian ballot
Yes.
harvesting organization
remember.
and how they're so organized. Now look what happened. They've 326 Haitians were flown. 326,000 Haitians were flown into Miami International Airport. So where are they going to go? They're going to go into the communities where there's like-minded, same culture. So now this whole ballot harvesting scheme can expand by hundreds of thousands of voters. And the pushback. So you talked about pushback, and we're pushing back because whenever a vote by mail request is made online by a person using only a 4-digit code. Let me just add one thing. You can request as many ballots as you want, as long as online in one session, as long as that a person delegated you the authority or they're a family member. So no one's checking,
Right, who
DNA
delegates
swabs
you.
to see who your family members are. So this is a huge threat vector. And what we saw in the 2024 primary in Pinellas County, like 291,000, their records show 291,000 vote-by-mail ballots were requested on the same day and a Sunday. So we went and did a public records request. We want to know what the IP addresses are. And by law, they have to maintain those records and they have to provide it. And they say no response. Now, I called on August 14th. I was also wanted to alert the canvassing board members that VR Systems had a virus in their infrastructure. Bunch of my tech team guys, we did a scan, and it's a very reputable tool. AT&T owns it. It was developed by the NSA and by CISA, and a lot of those guys cashed out big on this. But it's called the Open Threat Exchange, and we're all familiar with antivirus. I'm trying to keep this simple, so a lot of folks aren't technically.
You need to, especially for me.
Yeah, so everyone has an antivirus program, and they get updates, and new threats are detected by what's called, it's kind of like the stock market. It's called the Open Threat Exchange. And I subscribe to the Open Threat Exchange, and you find emerging viruses, and these antivirus companies pay rewards if you you bring it to their attention. So we found on VR Systems one malicious file. One malicious file could led to actually at least 200,000 different threat vectors. Now we can't prove that any of them were used or exploited, but my intention on that August 14th date when I was denied entry was to bring this to their attention and say, hey guys, we're going to have a problem with VR Systems. And I texted Mike Caruso and I put it on X, and we did. VR Systems went down. Remember?
Yes, St. Lucie County, Palm Beach County. Yes.
This is okay. So this is the next best kept secret. 64 out of 67 counties went down with their reporting. It was not a website problem.
64 of 67.
And all 64 are VR Systems customers. Now, when you talk about reporting and you go to votepalmbeach.gov or votemartin.gov and you click on the election night results, I don't know if you ever noticed, but you get redirected. Those websites, they don't give you the information for the vote election night results. You get directed to a domain called a URL, a website. It's a domain. It's called electionsfl.org. Now, why is there a third party reporting our election results, and why is it .org? The most secure, so they say, is .gov, and there was a 2019 .gov act passed in Congress that we want to harden.
St. Lucie County is not .gov yet.
Well, it's optional. They're supposed to, and if you don't, I think they may have changed because I checked that. I've been keeping tabs on that, and at first it was only 23 counties, but more and more have switched over. But why do we have this electionsfl.org as an intermediary? And what I've noticed, and what's in my complaint, is that these unelected bureaucrats and even the elected ones, they build in plausible deniability. We put a public records request in for the IP addresses of all of those folks who ordered 219,000 mail-in ballots on the same day, and they're coming back and telling us there's no records responsive to that request. So where are these records? So this is what we need to do to fight right now, is every day you can track the number of ballots that went out, and the people should be asking, what are the IP addresses? They're not prepared for this kind of pushback. So I'm receiving pushback, but I'm here today to let the people really know how to push back against this huge threat vector of vote-by-mail ballots that are being issued to voter registrants who never produce ID, they never show their face, and in my opinion, they could possibly be synthetic identities where the third-party NGOs, they're registering them outside of the DMVs and the Walmarts and the Publix, and they're the ones going around harvesting the ballots and submitting them.
Jeff, what do you say to people? Because we have this issue not only with this elections issue, election integrity, but we notice this in a lot of different government issues of trying to get records that should be available to the public, and they just say it's unresponsive, or they come back with a big old price tag that is unaffordable.
Yeah, we had one. When we asked, so every time there's a vote by mail request, there was a new law. It was actually a good law that Florida passed. A form has to be kept on file. It's called the DSDE 160. So we asked for all of the DSDE 160s for those 219,000 ballots that were requested in Pinellas County and on the same day, and they told us it would take 18,000 hours of programming to be able to come up with that public records request. So that's a big problem, and this is one of the reasons why ahead of time I filed my federal complaint on July 30th, and there were some delays. Obviously, they're going to delay, deny, and defend. But now the public records requests seem to go unanswered. So now we move to subpoenas, production documents. So I'm in a position.
Time and money.
Now I'm in a position to put filings in the federal court and demand these records, and I'm actually on my way after this show to Fort Pierce to do another filing to help protect the people.
So, folks, this is Jeff Buongiorno, and thank you for doing that, because it is an endless and thankless job to try and make the public aware and just be a public watchdog when you're not an elected official, you're not part of that unelected bureaucrat group, and just thank you for that. I know it's a tremendous amount on you. Can you answer this? Because this is something I hear every day of the week. It's a question I even have. In 2020, of course, there was a lot of claims of election fraud, 60 lawsuits, but all of them were dismissed or there wasn't found any credible evidence. So how was there so many lawsuits and not one of them said, yes, this is credible?
Well, that's, most of them, if not all, were brought on, were dismissed based on standing, that whoever brought the case on doesn't have standing, which is one of the reasons why I am not only a qualified elector, which should give me enough standing, but I'm also a candidate. So I face irreparable harm in two ways: my voting rights and as a candidate. So I think a lot of these folks who sued, they were in the wrong venue. State courts, I don't trust the state courts. Not many were. And probably all of those 60, I think they were. It was all state courts, state judges. They're elected. Even Congress. I've sent texts to Matt Gaetz and Brian Mast and Rep. Mike Caruso. I had them on the same thread, and I'm telling them that VR systems is corrupt. We have a problem. Not a word from any of them. So if you're an elected judge, why are you going to go against the machine that keeps you in power?
Absolutely, and that's the other thing I want to bring up too is we have the Republicans and Democrats. It's our two major parties. It's very frustrating because it seems like it's happening on both sides, and we're talking about here with Governor DeSantis appointees. Again, from just the people standpoint, and there's a lot of different issues that I can say this about, but we're talking about election integrity today. From the people standpoint, Who do you turn to? I mean, I know somebody like you, and thank God people like you are out there trying to shine a light on this. But at the same point, we're going to talk about it next. You're getting defamed
Yep.
through the media. They're shutting your voice down by just not printing your candidate electioneer. How unfair that is to just the general populace to not hear from Jeff Buongiorno. You are the Republican candidate for the Supervisor of Elections in Palm Beach County.
True. So let me just start by saying that globalists have no allegiance to any party lines. They just masquerade as Democrats and Republicans, and it's most of them are controlled opposition. And to your point on the censorship, the First Amendment, that's why it's the first. That's why it's number one. Free speech. It's being censored. What the Sun Sentinel did, not allowing throwing folks out of canvassing board meetings, and it's the same. It's the same thing with school board meetings when they don't want transgenderism, and they're getting thrown out. So we're living in dark times, and we keep saying that it's we're headed for dark times. No, we're in dark times, and the people have to fight back.
So let's move on to the Sun Sentinel, and Newsweek covered this as well. Again, you're getting national headlines over your fight to try and shine light on the lack of election integrity. Sun Sentinel, this is quoted right from them. For the first time, the Sun Sentinel editorial board will not publish online a questionnaire. For the first time, folks. Questionnaire submitted by a candidate. It was submitted by Jeff Buongiorno, an elections conspiracy theorist and the Republican candidate for Supervisor of Elections for Palm Beach County. Buongiorno's questionnaire is replete with myths and falsehoods. He doubts the reliability of Florida election results because, he said, they cannot be manually verified. Voting tabulation machines are tested frequently and results are audited, then certified by a canvassing board, which you just talked about, usually chaired by Governor Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff, anybody that's reading this that's not involved with politics, oh my gosh, we've got a conspiracy theorist running for supervisor elections. It's so bad, the paper won't even publish it. I mean, folks, you really have to do your own homework here, and I will publish this article as well as your responses. Somebody else was able to publish it, so I have a link, and I'll share that on this Facebook Live feed and also on YouTube when it gets uploaded. Your answers are not crazy; they're not conspiracy. We'll cover them a little bit because this is shocking to me that our media, that's supposed to be unbiased, is clearly biased and silencing you.
Yeah. Well, I did a little research as to the ownership of the Sun Sentinel, and it's a group called the Tribune, and they own hundreds of newspapers across the country. And the shareholder, there's one shareholder who owns 38% of the shares. His name is Patrick Soon-Shung. He's a biotech billionaire from California who's Chinese, and obviously he's in biotech. He needs to get his materials from China, so we have Chinese influence. I'm not saying CCP, but he's a Chinese person. And he owns 38% of the Tribune, which owns many newspapers. There's another player. His name is Mason Slane. He owns 8%. He's the next largest shareholder, and he's a Boca Raton resident. And coincidentally, Smartmatic, the indictment of all these guys, these C-level, Smartmatic is an election machine technology company. They're all in Boca Raton. So, we talk about the conspiracies and we say the deep state. Well, let's just look at the actors. We have, number one, California, probably a liberal. Number two, Chinese, okay. Number three, biotech. He needs to get materials from China because we're not manufacturing any of the base products that go into our medicines. And this guy owns 38% of the Sun Sentinel.
And because you point that out, you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yes. They don't, and I hope the Sun Sentinel readers have enough sense now to realize that this is a cover-up. I mean, I'm hoping that people are waking up over the last 4 years when we've had 120,000 fentanyl deaths a year and 6 degrees of separation. those deaths have a lot of reach, and I'm not going to even say they're overdoses. Those are flat out, poisonings, and that's another conspiracy theory when you say that.
Yep. Yeah, of course, right? How surprised were you when Newsweek called you up for a comment?
Well, it started in Florida, and it was in every single newspaper, major Florida, Tampa Bay Times. It went down the whole string of Florida mainstream, and then it hit Newsweek. So I really wasn't surprised. I've seen it before. I did a presentation at CPAC back in 2023 about national election infrastructure problems. So here's a Florida point. Before I go into that, this is very pertinent to Florida. Florida standards for our election systems are based on 2005 standards. They have never been updated. You can go and look on the Department of State's website. It's called the DSDE 101 form, and the last update was 2005. So we're working on standards that are 20 years old in technology. Our servers, our computers that run the numbers and the tallying are running Windows Server 2008, which is out of service. The clients, the workstations are running Windows 7. So there's vulnerabilities that are built in, and I explained all this in a seminar at CPAC back in 2023. And first the local newspapers got a hold of it, and then it went to the Los Angeles Times, New York Times. So that's kind of how this stuff grows legs. The local guys. So I expected it. And I just wanted to point out how outdated our technology is.
And folks, what astounds me just listening to this is most of us do not have the capability or know how to figure out this information. Windows 8, that's ages ago. Ages ago.
Yeah, 7 for the desktop.
It's 7?
2008 for the server, which is how they're exploiting these vulnerabilities, right? Microsoft, you go to the it's called CISA. It's an agency. It's the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, which happens to be under Mayorkas's purview. He's DHS. So CISA even report, you don't use 2008. There's known vulnerabilities, and these vulnerabilities are being exposed. So I talked about plausible deniability. There you have it. Well, we use old software. Well, it's not Microsoft's fault. They told us, years ago, stop using it, upgrade. And it's not, and you could point fingers back to ES&S and Dominion because they're allowing their systems to run on that.
Tie this in a little bit to your race in Palm Beach County for supervisor elections, because your opponent, Wendy Sartori-Link, that's one of her main platforms is modernizing the election systems.
Yeah, the only thing she modernized was the Fortress of Fraud, this new $35 million establishment that rivals an Amazon distribution center, complete with bulletproof windows and a nice little artistic touch. There's 3 20-foot flamingos that cost the taxpayers $750,000 for this artwork. So Wendy Link is my biggest challenge is that she utilizes taxpayer dollars, and a lot of incumbents do this, but more so in a race where she's using printed material, tents, mailings with her name and face that say the word vote. So they conflate what's a public service announcement with a marketing a campaign marketing material. So that's one of my biggest concerns. And donors don't see this as an important race. Now, I've talked to some big dollar donors, and they're like, well, we were worried about Rick Scott and Trump. I'm like, well, if you fix the problem, it's not going to cost you $100 million to win a race, to win too big to rig. It's only going to cost you $5 million, let's just say, as an example. We have to tighten up the processes. The processes need to be aligned with Sarbanes-Oxley. Everything is plausible deniability, pass the buck. I have Wendy Link in a video recorded saying I don't check residency, and that's a violation of a Florida Sunshine Law. I don't even want to say it because they'll probably try to change it, but it's 1S2.039. It says that the supervisor of elections is responsible for compliance to a state law at 97.041, which says you have to be a citizen and you have to be a resident. But here's the thing. They know who the citizens are and they know who they aren't, or else there would never be a legitimate trial, because a juror can't be a non-citizen. So the judicial system knows. They have an identical law. It's 40.01. It says the same exact thing as 97.041. So what I'm asking for in my federal case is for equal application of the law between how the judicial system selects jurors and how registered voters actually become qualified electors. Let's do that scan. And secondly, one of my team members did a public records request for the Division of Motor Vehicles in Pompano. There was August 2nd, someone cut a video of hundreds of what appeared to be non-citizens getting driver's licenses. And DeSantis' spokesperson said that the video is AI and it's fake. Well, they went and they did a public records request. They wanted to know the licenses that were issued, how many licenses were citizens and how many licenses issued were non-citizens. First, the DeSantis' spokesperson said that we don't give licenses to non-citizens, which we know was a lie. But we found out that 65% of the licenses issued on August 2nd at the Pompano Beach DMV were issued to non-citizens. So they know who they are, and they're gaslighting us. Cord Bird is gaslighting us when he writes a letter to the Department of Homeland Security on August 9th saying they have 14 days to respond on immigration status of certain voters. They know how to do it, and that's why I have this federal lawsuit. I'm seeking temporary injunction, relief, declaratory relief now and today before the votes are cast.
Jeff, God bless you. And honest to God, this is mind-boggling to me, and I have really informed listeners on this show. So I'm super glad that you're here, and I know that they're listening to this. You're running for the Supervisor of Elections in Palm Beach County. It's a constitutional office. You just said it's hard to get donors involved and people involved. It's really tough to replace a constitutional officer for many of the reasons you just said. Their names on everything that goes out. It's a co-branding, co-marketing platform. Their name's out there already. So you're out there trying to, on behalf of the American public, to make sure that we have integrity with our election system. And there's a couple things going on here. First, let me ask a question before I go into that. The voter registration, you said that they just have to supply the last four digits of their Social Security number. When did that law come into play? Great
question. So that was part of the Help America Vote Act. It's part of HAVE. It's Section 303. This started back in 2003. And anyone can go online to socialsecurity.gov, SSA.gov, and it's /open, it's OPEN /HAVV. So it's SSA.gov. People in Martin County are retired, they're probably on there all the time. You could drill down and find the Help America Verify voter numbers, and you'll see weekly numbers. Pennsylvania last week had 53,000 people, transactions that go through this system, where you could see the number of actual people registered only using a 4-digit code. No driver's license, no county ID. So these people have no connection to the local municipalities, the local county. No ID. You could track it. So from 2011 is when they started to report on SSA.gov. There have been 1.4 million transactions in the state of Florida. 885,000 of them have become registered voters. You could tell by the data, by the columns. It says yes, match. So that means almost 1 million voters are on the rolls right now that went through that system that they've never showed their face, they've never showed photo ID. And that's a problem. And the other problem is that I think this is a guise. The guise is that we want to find we want to make sure they're not dead. First of all, I mean, if you read the site, it makes zero sense. And we found like 323 out of 1.5 million people were shown as deceased. But my problem is the 33% failure rate. Are people phishing? We see all these breaches every day. AT&T, 2.7 million identities stolen. Why? And if you notice, you have all this uptick in identity theft and all of these breaches right before the election. And there's no cross-check. There could be one ID, one Social Security what I call synthetic ID, synthetic identification, could be registered in 6, 7 swing states.
You have no idea. Wow. Jeff, my mind is a little blown away from the show today, and I really appreciate you coming in. We only have about 4 minutes left. Where can people go to find out more information about you if they have questions for you and follow this and even help you? I know this is costing you a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, my website is my name, jeffbuongiorno.com, but I made it real easy for everyone. You could type in Vote Bongi, and Bongi is Bongi. So votebongi.com. You can donate there. You could register, time, treasure, talent. It all helps. You want to make phone calls. You want to send out texts. I think that really how everyone could help President Trump right now is to start texting the inactive Republicans that we have their information. They haven't voted. There's probably about 800,000 in the state of Florida. So they voted in the past, but they haven't voted in 2 primaries. They're inactive. We could start hitting them and get them out to vote and just explain that, we know how important it is, but that's low-hanging fruit. Not only do we need to do that, we need to get the voters that are registered out to vote. And so if you contact me, I can get you all that information. Time, treasure, or talent. You could help me out in Palm Beach. We could try to activate some of the inactives. We can follow up on vote-by-mail ballots that are set up, have been sent out. But also, we want to inundate them with public records requests. So if you go on my site, you sign up as a volunteer, I'll put you on a list, and I'll hold an online seminar. We'll show you how to do public records requests. We want to put the bad guys on the defense. And by the way, Vicki Davis, she might be a nice lady, but none of these supervisors of elections are using their constitutional powers. There's a terrible agency that they all subscribe to. It's called the Florida Association of Supervisors of Elections. And the supervisors of elections are beholden to this organization. They want to be part of the social club clique and the whole, they do their vacations together and their retreats. So this is why we're not being heard. Even at the local level, there's the Florida League of Cities, which the mayors and the committeemen, the councilmen, they're all part of. So this is part of the leadership capture, but and what we call the Leviathan or the deep state. So any supervisor of elections that isn't using their constitutional muscle, you said it's a constitutional position. They should be fighting for your rights. A vote-by-mail ballot is not constitutional. It's my job as a supervisor of elections to check citizenship, and she's punting it to Cord Bird, who's punting it to the DHS.
Good old passing the buck. Liz Kogler, thanks for tuning in. She said, thank you for bringing this out. Our school system, our healthcare, our media, etc., it's all colluded. And she was just talking to someone this morning about the same thing, the license issue on the August 2nd issued to illegals, or it might be August 20th. But it's really a huge issue that goes around. But what do you say to Republicans that said, it is fixed? Sorry, we only got 30 seconds. It is fixed. Why should I vote?
It's now or never. We need to swamp them. We need to get out there. We need to fix it. We'll never have another President Trump. We need to leverage that momentum and come out and vote. Either you're complicit if you don't.
All right. I will post some of this information we talked about today on the YouTube video that'll be at the Casey Ingram Show and also on Facebook Live. Thank you, Jeff Buongiorno.